The Train to Freedom: Risk takers, people who tried to escape from slavery in the United States, took a dangerous chance. Slave catchers and their dogs continually hunt runaway slaves. When they were caught, they might be beaten. Sometimes they were hanged. Even if runaways did not get caught, they often became ill from traveling on foot while tired, cold, wet, and hungry. Many free African Americans and others also took risks to help slaves who were run away. People who helped run away could be punished, yet many people did not think slavery was right and they found ways to help the slaves escape. The Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad wasn't really underground, and it was not a real railroad. It was called underground because it was secret, and it was called a railroad because it helped fugitives, slaves travel to places where they could be free. A network of people supported the Underground Railroad, helping the slaves escape. Many of the words connected to the Underground Railroad were railway terms. For example, slaves on the Underground Railroad were called passengers. The homes, business, and church where they could stop for food or shelter were known as stations and depots. The people who lived in these homes or ran these businesses were called station masters. Conductors were courageous people who went with slaves on their journey. Levi Coffin, a white Quaker from Cincinnati, was a well-known conductor, but the most famous conductor was Harriet Tubman, a woman who had been a slave herself. Harriet Tubman knew the evils of slavery. She was born a slave and worked as a maid, a children's nurse, and a field worker. When she was in his early teens, she tried to help a runaway slave. When he was caught trying to help, she was hit in the head of a heavy weight and almost died. As a result of injuries she suffered from blackouts through her life. Harriet Tubman was 29 years old when she made her own escape from slavery. Her journey was difficult, but she was successful and settled in Philadelphia. She worked as a dishwasher and began to make plans to rescue her family. Over the next few years, she brought her sister's family and her brothers to the north, where they were free. However, Harriet Tubman was still not satisfied. Over the 10-year period, she traveled back to the south 19 times to help more than 300 slaves escape. She was known along the Underground Railroad as Moses because, like Moses in the story of Exodus, she led her people to freedom. Harriet Tubman became a hero among slaves and among abolitionists, but others hated her. Large regards were offered for her capture. She wore clever disguises so no one could recognize her. Harriet Tubman's accomplishments were not limited to her work on the Union Army. She later worked in Washington, D.C. as a government nurse. She died at the age of 93 years. Travel on Underground Travel on the Underground Railroad. What was it like traveling to the north on the Underground Railroad? Although it was different for each person, it was never easy. Slaves had to find out how to escape from the slaveholders' property. Sometimes they had to leave family members or friends and risk never seeing them again. Slaves who wanted to escape could, could not talk about their plans. Discussing escape plans could be dangerous for the escaping slave or for others. It was often a challenge for fugitives to find their way from one stop to the next. Sometimes fugitive slaves had a conductor with them from the beginning of the journey, but sometimes they didn't. Runaway slaves had to trust strangers to help them. They often spoke in code, using one word to mean another. Some of these code words can be found and in the spirituals and other slave songs that have become part of our American heritage. The code used by travelers and helpers in the Underground Railroad could be hidden in these songs. Runaway slaves often try to cover between 10 and 20 miles a night during daylight. They rest at depots or stations, homes, shops, and church when they could. Sometimes they sleep in barns or in the woods. The Underground Railroad operated in many states. Ohio especially had numerous Underground Railroad stations. Thousands of runaway slaves followed the Underground Railroad into Ohio. To do this, they had to cross the Ohio River. Other supporters of the Underground Railroad. Slavery did not occur only in the South of the United States. Many of the slaves brought to North America arrived at northern cities and were sold to owners in the North. However, slavery was more widespread in the South, and it lasted much longer there. More and more people in the North heard about the Underground Railroad. They formed groups to raise money and provide food and shelter for runaway slaves. They groups known as vigilance committed 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 help city fugitive slaves who were faced with a very different climate and environment in the north. The vigilance committees help the former slaves find jobs. We don't have a complete study of the Underground Railroad. There are a few written accounts of the Underground Railroad or the experience of former slaves. Because of this, no one knows exactly how many slaves escaped on the Underground Railroad to free states, Canada or Mexico. We also don't know how many people took the risk of helping the fugitive slaves on their way or who these people were, but some historians estimating that as many 100,000 slaves rode the Underground Railroad to freedom.